Good afternoon, everybody, and my name's Donna Newbury from Wellbeing Australia. Lovely to have you with us today for another session of our First Responders Wellbeing Summit. Delighted to have you here today. Wellbeing Australia is a not-for-profit that is different in a few ways with regard to wellbeing. The first thing that's important to note is that we are very proactive. We believe in proactive management of your well-being and very solution focused. So we don't believe that it's necessary to wait until you're in a crisis or a difficult situation to take care of your well-being and pay it attention, especially as a first responder. But really good in times when you're still feeling good, to understand yourself, reflect, understand what makes your well-being, wakes up your well-being, and to practice that. The second thing I wanted to mention is we're a member-based organization based purely of volunteers. So we don't receive funding from government or any other agencies. We're entirely independent. So the purpose of today is really for you, our first responders, whether you're a formal first responder or you found yourself in first responder situations, whether you're a volunteer or a full-time staff member, whether you're family or a loved one of a first responder, we welcome you all today to this wonderful session. And you are in for an absolute treat today with two incredible individuals to take us through the questions around PTSD and how to not just survive it, but thrive it. A couple of things I wanted to just mention before we cross to our two panelists is our theme. We really truly believe that living well is comprised of a number of different things. And in this summit, we're really focusing on three. The sense of connection. Firstly, the ability to look in the mirror and understand what you need and connect with yourself, your own needs, be honest with yourself about how you're feeling, what you need, and then connect with the people that can help you through that. If you're not in a good place, reach out and connect. The second is about hope, and hope is such an important part of our well-being journey. The belief that things will get better, the belief that you can survive this, and very often it's hearing other people who have survived this and come through very traumatic experiences like and experience PTSD, like both Graeme and Dion today, that you get that sense of hope. Hope also comes from your spirituality, whatever form that takes. And lastly, the sense of community. We can't underestimate for first responders how important your community, your peers, and your family and friends. Your community makes up such a critical part of your well-being. And we really encourage you to connect socially with them as much as you can and as much as we're allowed to in the current environment, to make sure that you remain connected with people that care about you and that can support you on your well-being journey. Just one or two notes before I introduce our speakers. The first is that the Q&A button on the bottom of your screen, if you would like to pose a question to the panel, to either Graeme or Dion today, please pose your question in the Q&A, not in the chat function. If you pose it in the Q&A, you can make it anonymous, but it won't be seen by anybody else. And please, we welcome you to pose questions. Our panelists both are wonderful with dealing with many diverse questions, and that's really what they're excited to do today, is speak to you, answer your questions. The second is that you'll see a chat box. Please be aware that anything you say in the chat box is visible to everybody. So if you want to maintain your confidentiality, please don't make a comment in the chat box. You will be visible to everybody. So without further ado, I want to introduce Graeme and Dion. Gentlemen, welcome. Delighted to have you with us today. An absolute joy, and we've been so excited, looking forward to the session. What Dion and Graeme are going to do with us today is focus on surviving PTSD. What are the steps on the road to recovery? Now, Graeme is a former paratrooper, a paramedic and an aid worker. Welcome, Graeme. And Dion is the founder of the Lion Academy and Success for Soldiers. We are so thrilled to have you both here today. Graeme, would you like to just introduce yourself to our audience and speak maybe a little bit about what's brought you here today? We can't hear you. You're on mute. Okay. Graeme?
Yeah, my apologies. Oh. Technical difficulties there.
All good.
Well, yeah, welcome. Thank you for the invite. Really lovely to be here, Donna. Thank you very much. I work with Dion and I work on my own in the theatre of mental health and specifically PTSD. I've recently brought out my first short book on PTSD recovery. And my basic history is I joined the military at 17, did 8 years in the military. I then became an aid worker in Bosnia for 4 years, where I experienced a lot of global corruption, and then came back to the UK. While I had post-traumatic stress, decided to become a paramedic, which is probably questionable, but it was brilliant for me. And since moving to Australia, lucky enough to move to Australia, I've worked in the mental health field and disability field.
Wonderful. Welcome, Graeme. Lovely to have you with us today. Graeme joins us from the beautiful Cairns, whereas Dion is over the ditch in New Zealand. Welcome, Dion.
Oh, thank you very much for having me.
Excellent. Well, thank you so much for being here today. Could you just introduce a little bit of your background to the audience maybe and ask them and tell them a little more about what it is that brought you here?
Yeah, absolutely. Listen, I get asked to speak a lot of these things because I am you guys. I've worn a military uniform, I've worn a police uniform, I've bodyguarded in Iraq, and then I skipped across to corporate, started dealing with mental health in corporate, and now I'm running my own companies, helping everyone around the world. And my background really came, failed school, joined the army and the infantry in New Zealand, did a 6-month tour of Bosnia, and in that training process, best training in the world that we have in frontline staff for the record, right? We're bloody awesome at what we do. So I'm programmed to react to certain situations a certain way, and fear becomes a really good friend. Interesting, started as a bullied kid. So came through the army, piece of cake, 6 months in Bosnia, no issues. 7 years as a police officer, as all cops watching this know, and all frontline staff deal with the worst of human nature all together as a team. And then I went bodyguarding in Iraq, helping the British consulate bring refugees back into Iraq after Saddam had gassed most of them. So that whole background for me, I was a werewolf. So for anyone that's struggling with their anger and flipping out and flashing and wanting to put all your rage into these things and put it through people's heads, that was one side. And then a whole lot of nightmares about all the dead kids that I dealt with after I left the police and became a parent. So when this all kicked off, my daughter went to sneak up on me in the kitchen, and I turned around and freaked myself out that I couldn't control that instant reaction. And so that led me to be diagnosed with PTSD, disagreed with it. I said, I'm just doing what I'm trained to do. Wrote the world's first good news book about PTSD, started helping people. No one cared because I was an ex-soldier, an ex-cop. And then as soon as I got to this level, people are now starting to listen because it works. So just want to honor the people that are here watching this right now. You are the best trained frontline staff in the world. You're bloody good at what you do. We won both wars. This whole flavor today from us is about getting through, overcoming, and having an awesome life outside of this and getting through any of the crap that you're going through because it's natural and normal.
Excellent. Welcome to both of you. Thanks so much for the introduction. So I guess, Dion, what I'll do is bounce it to you to open up for today. Obviously, with the audience online, that includes a broad range, as we spoke of, first responders, family, friends, loved ones, formal and informal first responders, you know, the farmer who might have found themselves guarding, protecting their home, you know, people that happen to find themselves in a first responder role, regardless of whether they have the training or not sometimes. You know, we hear all the time, so I'm going to ask you the big tough questions up front, and hopefully we go from there. The elephant in the room.
Mm-hmm.
Another summit, another discussion around PTSD. Why? What is it we're not doing to deal with PTSD in first-line responders and people that are exposed to trauma?
Yeah, let's get into it. All right. So first and foremost, I don't care what trauma you've been through, all trauma is equal. Whether you saw your mate's head get blown off, whether you picked up body parts, or during the fires and the droughts in Australia, you had to shoot a whole lot of sheep on your farm. That's all trauma. It all affects people differently, but we're all equal. So let's do that one first. The biggest elephant in the room is, yes, it's another summit, but it's the same bloody conversation. So every year, let's do a well-being summit, let's do PTSD, let's do well-being, let's throw all the normal lollies on the table, tick all the boxes, and suicides keep going up. And so this is what we've found in our experience, that in the global sense across all these different countries. We deal with individuals, families, and organizations. For individuals, if you are still in uniform, or even if you're out, you are locked into one path and one path only to get support, and that is the medical model. So that starts off with either talking to your EAP or your police association, frontline association rep. Then you go see the GP, counselor, psychologist, psychiatrist. That's your only option, unless you go looking for stuff yourself like we all did. So in isolation, it is not working. Otherwise, we wouldn't be sitting here having another summit. So the medical model in isolation is not working, but there's brilliant stuff in there. What we've found is combining the medical model with lived experienced solutions, not awareness, lived experience solutions, and every part of ourselves, emotional, spiritual, energetic, at the same table. That's where the solutions already exist, because we already have solutions. Like, we don't come to summits to talk about awareness and what can we do and all that other crap, because nothing's changed having that conversation. The conversation has to be is who's got solutions that actually work, bring them all to the table, give people the choice on what solution they want to access. And the people we deal with are generally the people that have been through the other model and it hasn't worked. That's why they end up on our doorstep, and then we just put it in their own language and they're fine. The other reason outside of those is organizations, the people that are in control of designing solutions are part of the problem. So they should not be allowed to design the solutions, all right? They should get the solution providers in there. And the last thing is, we've done too much talking of awareness without solutions. We have actually slayed the stigma of suicide. We have slayed the stigma of killing yourself, instead of slaying the stigma of asking for help. So now it's okay if you kill yourself, because everybody's doing it. So we need to get in here quickly, get straight in here and say, no matter who you are, what you're struggling with, we have a solutions menu and a solutions community. But it's got to start with a desire to want to get through what you're going through. And if you don't have that, if you don't want help and you don't want to get through it, no one's going to help you get through it. So that's why we have the same bloody elephant on these summits, because we're talking around in circles, not bringing a solution community into the conversation.
So Graeme, thank you, Dion. Very interesting. Graeme, what are some of the solutions in your experience? You've someone who's lived through PTSD and thriving on the other side. What have been some of your solutions?
Thanks, Donna. I basically very quickly put all the solutions that I did and went through. So my personal experience of how I came out of post-traumatic stress. Now, what I'm going to add to this or prefix this with is the fact that when I was counselling at Lifeline for many years, lots of people came with undiagnosed PTSD. And as Dion said, it doesn't matter how you contracted PTSD, it manifests in exactly the same way. To me, that hints at a physiological injury or a condition. So 15 to 20 years, I tried many things once I'd realized it and accepted it. And I condensed all those things into what worked for me. And the first book that's come out, which is Surviving the Shitstorm. So people are in the hole, people who are actually suffering, suicidal ideation, shouting, screaming, splitting up with their partners, drinking. It's for those people, but it's also a brilliant place just for general mental health well-being. And I put down the 5 most important factors, and this is indicative of, in the military, you get trained to kill the enemy before you help the injured person. You've got to look after you, put the oxygen mask on before. You have to look after you. You have to get yourself firing on all cylinders before you can go and look for the right help to places like our website, Dion's website, the PTSD solutions community. You have to be firing on all cylinders. So the 5 principles there, or the 5 tools in my book, are sleep, alcohol, diet, exercise, and meditation. Sad me. And once you get those right, you're going to be at a place of homeostasis. You're going to be firing on all cylinders. You can then go out and look for the right help and get the right treatment by the right person for you.
Excellent. Dion, with your PTSD, because you've also been through that journey, how did you know you had it? What were the symptoms you experienced? And what were some of the solutions for you? Were they similar to what Graeme experienced, or?
Yeah, listen, there's 4 ways that people generally manifest. And all I did in my book was turn them into characters, because you don't have to ask that question to the husband or the wife of someone that has it. So if you ask that question to my wife, what makes you think that Dion had PTSD? Angry, wanted to fight all the time. As soon as I tried to get close and discuss it, he'd blow up. Kids are walking around on eggshells. Yet as soon as crisis hit, it turns into this flipping ninja. There's a car accident happens in front of us. If there's someone picking a fight with someone else, into it automatically at the highest levels, switch it back off again. Nicknamed G.I. Joe by the family because of all the stuff that we carry with us, even when we're going to the supermarket, back at that stage. So putting labels on the behavior, that's something to do with manifesting a lot of emotion, which is the expression of what I would term the werewolf, just that flashing of anger. Then we have the ghost or the vampire, which is the ghost is the flashbacks and the nightmares. I had nightmares of dead kids. And this is years after I finished being in the police. I only started having nightmares about dead kids as once I became a dad, because those memories were just sitting there. So they're just activated. And so you got the werewolf, ghost, vampire, or the paranoid assassin, which is when you just stay away from everyone else. And so the medical term would call that hyperarousal, hypervigilance, depression, anxiety, all these other labels. So as soon as you understand your thoughts, feelings, and behaviors in your own language, then we can have a conversation. As soon as we speak the same language, we can have a conversation. I get someone who says, Dion, I've been diagnosed with PTSD, hyperarousal, hypervigilance. I'm like, so you're a werewolf and an assassin? And they're like, yeah. So cool, bro, we need to do your moon state chart, get some silver bullets, and I need to give you some information, leave you the hell alone. And I'll touch base in a week, and they're sweet. Instead of doing a 20-week PTSD program, 6-week PTSD program in someone else's language that means nothing.
And what were your solutions, Dion, with PTSD, and what helped you get through that to the other side?
Well, the first thing was taking this off and putting it down and being able to explain it to myself. And what I came up with was, it's just training. Every single frontline copier knows the definition of assault, verbatim. Every frontline AMBO knows how to chuck a bloody IV line. And so we are all trained in the most flippin' effective training systems known to man. So all I'm doing is reacting the way I was trained. So I went back into how I was trained, and then I turned my solutions into a training package. So all of my solutions are training packages. If you're a werewolf, then there's a training package. If you are doing something wrong as a frontline worker, you get counseled first, generally by the sergeant or the section commander, which is normally dragged around the back and say, what's going on, over a cup of tea, then you get your ass kicked, then you get sent on training, right? So my solutions for everything to do with mental health is, first and foremost, get in a vocabulary for that person. And we give that to you in the book. I counseled a 14-year-old girl yesterday, and she created all of her characters. She's ditched her psych after flipping 20 weeks and 10 minutes with me, because she's now got a language. Hey, this is what's going on in my head. And we go, oh, cool, that's just this. And she goes, and she's fine. So it was the interpretation and definition in your own language so we can have a conversation. And then training. If you're this, do that. Because I don't give a shit why I'm acting the way I am. Just tell me how to not act that way again. I'm a flipping professional. I'm trained to do stuff. Tell me, Dion, if you want to go from here to here, do these 3 things. That's what I want to know. I just want the bloody map. I don't need the whole flipping story behind it. Sorry, I get really worked up that energy, because a whole lot of people watching this right now that have sat down with someone they've said, just tell me what to do. And then someone will turn around and go, psychology doesn't work that way, Dion. It's more powerful if you come to your own conclusions yourself. If I knew what the solution was, I would not be talking to you, would I? So my solutions, get a vocabulary so you can take these thoughts, feelings, and behaviors out and explain them and have a conversation. Then we have training packages in your language, lesson plans, scenario training, stuff that you were trained in. It just makes sense.
Fantastic. Well, I'd love to come back to some of that, Dion. I think, especially in terms of understanding also the role of the family and friends and people around them. But let me first go to Graeme, because I want you to pick up on something that he said. And Graeme, there's been a question come through for you. You mentioned earlier about how the solution was finding your tribe, finding the right people to speak to. How did you go about doing that?
Okay, so it's a section that's going to be a section in my next book, right? Which is finding a counsellor. You have to resonate with that person, and there are a lot of bad counsellors out there. I'm just using the broad spectrum counsellors for everything. Okay, so again, and what we advocate in the PTSD solutions community is, look, come and have a chat with us, come and have a look, come and see who resonates with you. If somebody doesn't like me because I'm a pommy or you know I'm too direct, I'll go and have a talk to Lisa Westgate, go and have a talk to Dion, go and have a talk, see who resonates with you. Very quickly to answer that question is this. If I'm talking to someone and they're in Bristol in the UK, I look up the counsellors in the UK. I have a index of what I want them to be able to do. I want them to be ex-military. I want them to EDMR. I want them to have trauma training. I want them blah, blah, blah. And then I will find 3 to 5 of those. And I will instruct that person to contact all 5 of them and arrange a 5-minute meet and greet for free with them. If they don't want to do that, they can piss off, because you know you have to have that faith and that connection. Talk to all 5 of them, 5 minutes, see which one you like. There's your man, your woman.
So is it really about that chemistry with that individual? I mean, I guess part of it's the theory and the approach that they're going to provide, the sort of theoretical approach that they come from, and their training. But so how important is that chemistry?
It's massively important, because you're engaging this person to open up your inner secrets and your inner demons too, right? The interesting thing in my form of counselling, if you find you're across me in a counselling way, is that you'll be surprised that I will not even ask you to repeat how you contracted your trauma. I am not interested in you telling me all about your horrible stories, right? We've all had them. It doesn't matter. It's irrelevant. And also it's detrimental, because it's going to trigger your stress hormones again. What I want to do is just talk about solutions, right? You're not sleeping? Take GABA, take taurine, take glycine, get your body clock working. Here's the solutions to that. Next week, oh, you're sleeping better. Great. We're a step closer to getting you firing on all cylinders. But it is very important that you have a very good and you trust the person that you're talking to. Otherwise, you're not going to open up. And the amount of times that I talk to people and I say, so are you getting therapy? Oh, yeah, I have this wonderful psychologist. Yeah. How long you had it for? 10 years. Oh, right. It's working well then.
I love the skepticism, but you know, I think that's the beauty of I think you know, this forum, and there's different things work for different people, and you know, it's about looking at all the solutions and finding what works for you. Absolutely. Dion, I want you to come back to the earlier question about the impact of PTSD on loved ones who are struggling. I mean, what can they do? What's your suggestions and advice to them?
It all depends on what they're manifesting, or their partners are manifesting that. So you need to understand the language first. So I get a lot of husbands and wives and kids now saying, found you online, dad's angry all the time. He used to be in the army and I saw your YouTube clip that you were angry all the time. How did you not be angry? Why is he angry at me? And I'll be able to spin around straight on and say, he's a werewolf and I know exactly what he's dealing with, and I can teach them the language so that they can at least have the conversation. Most partners that reach out to me, it's because their partners won't reach out to me. And here's a live case example for anyone watching this, and then I'm going to stick up for some psychs and counsellors just to rebalance the conversation, so we're not slagging off psychs and counsellors. There's just a way that this works. So I had a woman message me just before midnight. So those of us in the space, we normally sleep from maybe 1 till 6 or 1 till 8 on that slant of the clock, because we're getting across the different time zones. So just before midnight, I get a message. Dion, found your stuff, saw your videos, loved it, showed my husband he's not interested, but he's a werewolf. What do I do? So in the book, it tells the partners exactly what to do. There is a ripple effect. If you are dealing with something, you're putting that on all your family. Whether you sit there nice and quiet, when I'm in my state back then, or when I used to just sit there and just be seething, my kids would walk in the room, walk out. They could feel that. And if I'm doing what I think is right, staying away from everyone and trying to calm myself down, my kids are picking up on, hang on, daddy's over there, mummy's over there, what's going on? So even if you're trying to lock your own stuff down, your whole family feels this, and there is an effect on this. This is energy. Emotion is just energy and motion, right? Now, to stick up for the psychs and counselors, we have psychs and counselors, hypnotherapists, physiotherapists, just every IPIS that you can think of within our solutions community. So we're not ostracizing anything. What we're trying to say is, in of itself, as the lead, in isolation, doesn't work. Now, the best that we can hope for, it's our gradual increase of suicides, because suicides are going up, they're not going down. They're just holding that space. I can show you a graph of psychology graduates and suicide levels going up at the same time. So you've got to do something more, okay? So there's nothing wrong with psychs and counselors. I've got 3 of my own psychs that I talk to. I've got counselors that I go to counseling for, to check in, to reassess, to run past the right person. So here's one thing that no one can argue with across any modality. The single most accurate predictor for success is one thing and one thing only, is the relationship between the person struggling and the person helping them with a solution. Irrelevant who that person is, the strength of that relationship is the single most important factor. Then you get into the mechanics. So the ripple effect on family is huge. This could be generational as well. My grandfather's in the army, my dad was in the army, I was in the army. It's a ripple effect if someone doesn't get in there and sort themselves out and explain what's going on. And that's what we did in all of our books. There's a comic strip I put in my book, me getting angry at my daughter, me explaining to my daughter while I was like that, and then the advantages of still having these skills, which is, I'll finish this question right here, but no matter what you're going through right now, you don't lose your skill level. No matter how bad it is, if we're in a real dark place in this conversation now, and outside a car crashes into another car, every single frontline operator here will run outside and know exactly what to do in a heartbeat. So you never lose your skill set. You just lose control over some of your emotions. That's it.
Let me just add to that, please, Donna, if I may, because it's very important. If you live with somebody who is experiencing post-traumatic stress, you can contract post-traumatic stress. So my message to anyone who thinks that they have maybe experiencing post-traumatic stress, and I don't say suffer, and I don't say disorder, is please, if you don't want to get the help, the right help for you, please get it for your partner or your family.
Interesting. Thank you, Graeme. I agree. I mean, I think that it's just so critical. What you were talking about earlier, Dion, what you've mentioned, Graeme, about the aura that you just give off, the vibe you give off, that everybody, you know, around you just knows without you saying a word. They can just look at you, your body language, your behavior, and just understand exactly what space you're in. And I think it puts incredible strain on relationships as well. Graeme, I wanted to pick up on something you had said earlier about meditation, and you had outlined your 5 key parts of basic hygiene and health. The one that's very interesting, because I think we sometimes you know, don't always pay as much attention to it as the physical and the other psychological, is the spiritual aspect. And you mentioned meditation. Now, I know a lot of people, especially first responders, find it so difficult to meditate because you switch off and you've got either, you know, flashbacks, or your brain's going at 100 miles an hour, or you're thinking about what you could have done better or what you will do differently next time, etc. How do you manage that as a first responder, you know, and whether it's meditation, or if meditation doesn't work for you, whether it's a religion, you know, formal religion, how do you get into that? What's your recommendation there?
Yeah, and you know, I'll start by saying that I was that person who thought meditation was just a rubbish purple spiritual hippie thing, and I do it regularly now. It was the easiest chapter for me to write, and it's such a misnomer, so misunderstood. Meditation is so easy, and you don't have to sit in the lotus position burning incense, you know, with Tibetan prayer bowls. You simply just need to take yourself out of the situation you're in at the moment and listen to your favorite piece of music for 5 minutes and absorb yourself in that 10 minutes, and you build up, and that can lead to downloading meditations from YouTube, guided meditations, music. On my page, PTSD is not a disorder, or the PTSD survival guide on Facebook, I've just posted an absolutely hilarious meditation, which I love. It really is so simple to meditate. And the other thing is, if you're coming home from work, which is one of my tips, you're coming home from work driving, just stop before you get home. Take a walk along a river, sit on a bench, listen to your favorite piece of music for 5 minutes, listen to somebody talking for 5 minutes, then get back in the car and then go home. You don't take your baggage home with you.
Great advice, because I think getting into that, we sort of think meditation has to be a very formal, guru type of way, but you're so right. It can be little moments in the day that you can take to just reflect and center yourself. Dion, a very important question that's come in from our audience to you, and I'll just read it through for you because I don't want to misinterpret. So somebody's written, I have a 20-year-old son diagnosed with chronic treatment-resistant PTSD, social anxiety, and comorbid major depressive disorder. We've tried clinical psychologists and psychiatrists over the last few years, as well as several hospital admissions. I'm desperate for some direction. Please help.
Isn't that a perfect example? Yeah, we'll double whammy this one, more help the better.
Yeah.
So now there's a medical label for if the medical model is not working for someone, you're now flipping resistant to someone trying to help you. So you're now labeled because you can't get through to this kid. So there's an example there. Just get in touch with me directly after this. I'm easy to find. I'll talk you through it. I'll have Graeme with me. We've got Lisa. We've got a whole community that can help you with this. It'll come down to, so we've got a 6-stage process. The first one is desire. The person that needs the help must have a desire to want to go through this. If they don't have a desire, nothing else is going to work. So that's where you have to start, unless that person sees a benefit. And something I really have to raise now before I hand over to Binti is suicide is very, very simple. Okay. And I'm not devaluing trauma here. I'm just telling you how simple this is. It is when being dead has a higher value than being alive. That's it. That no matter how you get to that point, it's like, if I go to sleep and not wake up, then all that stuff that I'm dealing with, I don't have to deal with. If I go to sleep and not wake up, all the fatigue I have from trying to fight this the whole time and do all the rest of what's the bloody point, that all goes away. So that's what we're dealing with when we get down to that point. The trajectory from that question in that, without speaking to this kid, and I say kid in his 20s, so my apologies, is understanding his vocabulary. What's going on, understand the vocabulary, I know what character you are, and we'll go in there, because some people, if they don't have that desire, they'll hit crisis point. So you either have a desire or crisis point. So they can reach out directly to myself, Graeme, Lisa, Sean, there's about flipping 20 of us. And in the Line Academy, for anyone else watching this, the lineacademy.co.nz, it's not a promotion for the academy. In there is a free mental health solution with 26 other people's solutions with spirituality, all the rest of it. So it's impossible if you want to get through what you're going through, not to find a modality that resonates with you. And on the meditation side, I've got a close relationship with Jesus and I hate religion. That's my way out. The gym is meditation. Boxing is meditation for me. Some of our instructors run spiritual retreats in Bhutan. We have to understand the frontline mindset. They're busy. Every cop that's watching this right now is imagining all their files breeding in their file tray. And so when they're looking at some sort of solutions, okay, so yes, there's a solution. What's involved? What's the benefit for me and what do I have to do? And if that equation doesn't stack up, you can forget it. So it's all about understanding that person, understanding vocabulary, finding out where that desire point is to at least continue the conversation. If the whole bloody medical model gives you a label that you're resistant, my God, poor kid, get out of that model. Come across to us. We'll help you.
Yes.
Bint?
Yes, thank you. The reason I put my hand up is I experienced social phobia most of my life from 15, 16, and it comes from childhood bullying. And it's very misrepresented, very misunderstood, but it is very debilitating, very, very debilitating. And for that person, I'm going to speak his language, right? Because I have spoken to psychologists who can't even define social phobia properly. It is not the fear of public spaces and the public and going out. It is an irrational fear of what people think about you, and it is absolutely all-consuming. And it's horrible, and it's so hard to find somebody to talk to, explain, and it can just, so yeah, contact me for free. I'll help that person out and understand and speak his language. And just very quickly, not to mention, if you go into Dion's website or our website, the PTSD solutions page, Sean Grant, expert in anxiety, plus you can also get a free copy of Dion's book.
And Sean's got a book called Attack Panic. So in the PTSD solutions community, Sean Grant's our expert on anxiety. Like, he's just an absolute ninja. He's better than I am. So anyone that's got that side of things, send them straight to Sean.
Yeah.
Sorry, my mute button seems to be sticky today. What generosity. Thank you to both of you. That's such unbelievable resources, connection, generosity. So, and I think, you know, the fact that you've both written books about this exact topic, I'll ask you to maybe, you know, come back at the end, and I know we will be having a special offer for some of our audience. So that
there's no offers. All our stuff's free. You just,
yeah,
all our stuff's free. Just grab them. There's
wow.
No offers.
Wow.
Well, stuff, we hate salesmen.
Yeah.
I'm struggling sitting here with my jacket on, but I know that there's commanders watching this, and I know this is for individuals, but if you do the organizational side, then we've got organizational solutions too. So I want to make sure that we're speaking to the frontline individuals going to walk out of here, probably go to a job on their way home, get rid of a file, grab a beer, go back to his family, and try not to lose his while he's doing the dishes, you know. So I want to make sure we look after those people first. But yeah, that other stuff, don't worry about it. Just don't worry about it. Just, you can go and grab all that stuff. It's all free.
Amazing. Thank you. You're both such incredible, generous spirits. Beautiful. Next question from the audience for you, Graeme. So obviously, you know, Australia's been through an incredible year of a lot of trauma, and back to back, but specifically focusing on group PTSD, on situations where, for example, with the fires, that an entire group or organization or community is suffering the same. Do you think it's better, in your experience, to treat each individual or to treat them as a group? What are your thoughts? Love both of your thoughts on that question, because it's an unusual one, and I think there's some interesting pros and cons, I imagine, to both.
Yeah, it is. That is an interesting and difficult question. I'm not quite sure how I'll tackle it. Obviously, I think individual therapy is paramount because it's individual. However, community, and in the solutions page, community comes into our 6 ways, you know, methods of healing. So community is down there in 4 or 5, I think. And so the community can be, you know, you need to go and talk and share. So as a paramedic, I talk about when I was a paramedic that we would go home off shift and go via the pub, sit, have a beer, and talk about our jobs. When I say jobs, that means each job you've had that night, all the jobs you've had, you know, all the traumas you've been to, and talk about them and sort of exercise them, if you like, with the use of humor. So there is a very, you know, a community. You have to be together as a community because you've all been through the same shit. So discuss it, talk about it, carry the load together. I hope that answers.
Yeah, so just to tag on the back of that is, first and foremost, a community that's been through that bushfires, Christchurch earthquakes, police dealing with a well-known shooting that happens. Anytime there's collective involvement in trauma, you have really high team spirit. Yeah. So if you've got a whole town that's dealing with something, you address the whole town and you acknowledge that this has affected the whole town, right? And you speak to that whole group. And we're doing it now, right? So this Zoom call is speaking to a global group. And then out of that, individuals will then reach out. But when you speak to a group, you've got to be speaking 4 different languages at the same time, because there's the 4 manifestations of what's happening within the 6 stages of what we do in the community. But underpinning that, and this is the gap that we've filled that no one else has done yet, you must have an online system that captures everyone. So we speak now, hey, this is what we reckon. If you agree with that, go here. We'll address you as a group, speak to the individuals one-on-one and give them what they need. And under that is an online system that looks after everyone. Within the Lion Academy, we'll create give me the name of a town that's had the bushfires. Give me the name of a town. Can someone give me one?
Glen Innes.
All right, so Glen Innes, we would create in the Lion Academy a tab just for Glen Innes, and we would load up everything for that town in that online system. If you're from this town dealing with this, come in here into the Academy. Here's all of our free resources. We'll talk to the whole group that's in here, have access to all the free books and everything else that they need, and we can then plug them into other people that can get the help, and then they're safe in that space. Talk to them as a group, deal with the individual one-on-ones that come out, leave them supported, because every single frontline person is laying in bed at night is banging away on their phone. And so they can be doing that, going in there, watching these videos, getting these resources, because I'm going to tell a lot of people how they're feeling when they're in those moments of going to sleep or waking up. So that's how I would do it for group. You have an advantage, you have higher team spirit and connection, talk to them as a group, deal with the one-on-ones, but then you must have underlying ecosystem of support.
Yeah, and also as a community, look out for the people whose MO changes, right? Because that's an indication that they're not actually dealing with this as well as they should. So, you know, I'm in a lot of communities on Facebook. I'm in a lot of military, ex-military pages, etc. And I read body language, even online body language. And Smith's MO's changed. He's cranky at 10 o'clock in the UK every night. He's drinking. You know, he's going down. Send him a direct message, private message. Hey, Smithy, you right, bro? Mate, yeah, bit low at the moment. Simple.
Where do you take it from there, Graeme? So if he says, yeah, a little low at the moment, how do you respond? What do you
tell him? I tell him he's a twat.
You should know better.
No, my next phase is to have a face-to-face.
Okay.
Yeah, and really, you know, have a really good yarn and do a very lot of listening, passive listening.
And maybe a question for you quickly, Dion, in terms of just building on that, is how do you have a conversation with somebody who's going through PTSD and broach that elephant in the room? Because
so easy. It's so easy. Oh God, we demonize this and we make this such a hard thing to do. Everyone's terrified of it, right? So I speak to all the commanders, and I spoke at the Senior Enlisted Leaders Conference. So every Allied Force commander from Warrant Officer Class 1 to Staff Sergeant once a year goes to an allied country and has a global leadership conference. And I was a mental health speaker there, and every single commander from those nations said the same thing to me. They were like, we're terrified of pushing the big red button on mental health for someone and they're just having a bad day, or we are going to miss something and we don't do something and they go and kill themselves. So they're terrified when it's very, very simple. So this is the process for frontline staff. If you're struggling with something and you come to me, I go, hey, how's it going? How'd you find me? What do you know about me? So I know where they came from. Saw this video, saw this, the Wellbeing Australia Summit for New South Wales. I saw you on that. And I go, okay, cool. What's going on? Within 50 or 60 seconds of them talking, I'll know what character they are from my book. So I'll know, I can reverse engineer exactly what they're dealing with. And I go, okay, then. So just to connect, so to make sure I understand you, when I was going through that stuff as well, I was this, thinking this, feeling this, doing that, think, feel, do. Is that what's happening for you? Then we just find the matches where we match. And then I just go, here's 3 options for solutions. Go and try them, come back to me. Have you got a really good counselor? Yeah, I love my counselor, it's really, really good, but I feel like I can't talk about some stuff. Okay, go back to your counselor, see if your counselor is willing to connect with me, and then the 3 of us will help. And then because counselors have a skill set that I don't have, psychologists have a skill set that they don't have. So if we just share and get around this person, we can get around this person. My process is really simple. Tell me what's going on. I'll know your language. I'll give you some solution options. You go and try it, find one that works, and I'll support you through it. It's really that simple.
And what about for family and peers, maybe, Graeme, who are trying to get that person to address the issue and say, look, it seems like you're not okay. How do you have that?
Yeah, that's a very good question. Just to go on from Dion's as well, and your previous questions, never be afraid to ask this question. I'm talking to Dion. Dion, have you been thinking about killing yourself? Dion, are you suicidal, bro? Dion, have you been thinking?
I have been thinking about it.
Yeah. Okay. Have you got a plan? Have you made a plan of how you're going to do it?
I have. I'm gonna. I've got it all mapped out. I'm just waiting for the right time.
Do you have a time when you're going to do that?
Not yet, man, but I'm at my wit's end.
Okay. Can you give me some time with you, and can I contract you to throw that rope away, give it to your wife, give it to your mate down the pub, and give me some time to work with you before we revisit that place?
Put him on the spot, Binty. Put him on the spot, but I'm a man of my word.
Let's do it. We've made a contract. It's that simple, just to stop that the crisis zone. People are so scared of it. Ask the question. It doesn't matter what terminology you don't have to say suicidal ideation. Are you going to top yourself, Dion? You've been thinking about topping yourself, brother, right? Just ask the question. You will be very surprised at how candid people are at answering that question. Yeah. So just to go back to your other question, this is very important. You're trying to give help to your partner. They're refusing it. They're not even in recognition. First of all, join a support group. Join a support group with other people in your position. And that obviously online, Facebook, they're easy groups to find some friends, local groups, get the support you need before you start suffering. Okay. And then there's many ways, and each one's individual. If they're a paramedic, talk to one of their paramedic friends. Okay. Talk to find an online therapist who's an ex-paramedic. Would you talk to this person? Leave literature lying about where they can find it accidentally, and they read it and it piques their interest. The old newspaper adage where you'll look at a newspaper over someone's shoulder, and if they do that, you're more interested in it. So there are
the power of those books, bro. Like these books have been these books pop up everywhere. Someone sees it laying around, they grab it. I'll see one of Binty's books pop up online somewhere. Oh, so met this crazy Pommy guy and I read his book, it was brilliant. I'm like, it's because it's out there. But I just want to say there's one character that if you try and push, they'll go.
Yeah.
So the paranoid assassin, someone that's dealing with hypervigilance, you try and get them to do something, you will push them away. And that's the hardest one to deal with relationships. Husbands trying to get close to wives, they withdraw. So there's a very specific way to deal with it. That's why you have to understand what their language is first. If you are watching this, you're a husband or a wife, just tell us what's happening. We don't need to know any other details. And what is he doing? What is he saying? What is she doing? What is she saying? Tell me what you think's going on. Just doesn't talk anymore. Bingo. All right. So I know what to do with that.
Yeah.
He's jumping at everything.
Yeah. The opening gambit in my book, the opening preface of my book, and I'm not pushing my book because I'm giving it to you guys for free. It is literally this. It condensed. If you've reached rock bottom and you have disdain for yourself, if you think you can't go on, these are not you. This is not really you. These are manifestations and symptoms of PTSD and depression, and like any other ailment, those symptoms can be treated.
Oh, absolutely. And thank you so much for showing us that conversation. I mean, I'm sure for people watching, that's because it's scary. If you haven't had that conversation before and you just don't know what to do with the fact that somebody might say yes.
That's why you need training in how to have that conversation, Donnie.
Exactly.
You keep saying these organizations. You want training for your organization, your frontline staff.
Yeah.
Get us down during your recruiting side and let's have these. I mean, we do all these scenarios. Okay, you're going to walk into a room. There's going to be someone with a knife in their chest. There's going to be. We do scenario training day in and day out in frontline stuff, but we don't even have that scenario training for dealing with someone. I mean, we always do it in a sense where we're dealing with someone in the public. You're getting deployed to this job. We've got a 1S. Someone's trying to kill themselves. You go in and you attend it as a frontline staff member. But we don't do how do we talk to each other as scenarios. And then now that I've said that, every other bloody EAP is going to now run that. How to have a conversation with a suicidal person. But you have to have that training by people that have done it.
Yeah.
Frontline people. And you put that in your organizational process and you have ex-frontline staff who are not just straight out of the job, but actually are at the point of helping other people. Otherwise, you'll end up in that whole Facebook group of, I reckon we should do this, opinion. You've got to work with people that are already helping people. And if it's from ex-frontline, it's just so much easier. We just walk in there and go, all right, so who doesn't want to be here? Yeah, right. And so I know what it's like when I sat there on wing 170 and some twat walked in here and you know what? It's the bar's opening in 20 minutes. You got a shit show of trying to get my attention right now, buddy, all right? So when you have ex-frontline talking to frontline, it works. Yeah. That conversation with commanders is a different conversation. It's more engagement and productivity and implementation, execution plans and timelines and liability and insurance. Those are the organizational conversations. But down here at Frontline, it's so bloody simple, it's annoying. So that's
And
probably...
don't be afraid to use humor.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, for both of you, you're some of the funniest guys I know. So, so effective, I think, in this situation, because you can't lose your sense of humor through it all. So we've just got 10 minutes left and lots of questions continuing to come in. I'm going to try and go through them with you all. Graeme, any advice for current people serving? They love their job. But if they reach out for help, it can be a career killer. How do you respond to that? Yeah,
that old chestnut. Absolutely, and that's the that's the catch-22, right? That's the oxymoron, an elephant in their room, and we don't really believe that this open world of caring that's it really works. So step outside your professional boundary and find counsellors like Dion and myself, or Lisa Westgate, who is an ex-paramedic as well, and been through lived experience of PTSD. I'm not an expert in post-traumatic stress. I am an expert in my post-traumatic stress. And everyone I speak to, I can resonate with the way it was manifested for them, whether it's sleep paralysis, night terrors, hypervigilance. I can speak their language. And here's one of the things that I hear all the time, and this I speak about in the little video I made. When at first I did not go to get help from a professional, I asked myself why. And the answer is, I thought that it was I thought psychology was a very specialized subject, and psychologists were very esoteric people. Turns out it's not, and it turns out they're not. It is actually very simple. And if you use a really simple methodology, it's just, you'll be surprised at how simple this is. And the tools I can give you, I can fill a toolbox for you. If you use them, if you want to use them, you want to make yourself firing on all cylinders, because I don't say make yourself better, I just make yourself, healthier, firing on all cylinders. If you really want to, the tools are there. I'll give you them free. You have no excuse.
Graeme, we've got a comment from Lisa, who's online. Hi, Lisa.
Hi, Lisa.
Yeah, she's just saying, asking questions, especially hard ones, is how you can get through all the information you need to work out what the next step is. It eliminates the what we don't know. Ask them what you don't know, then you can always work out from there what the next step is. You can't talk to people, you can't talk people out of suicide, but you can. Sorry, you can't talk people into suicide and talk them out of it. Sorry.
And just something for that question to frontline staff, it's trust. Frontline staff must have trust in the confidentiality. If they do say something within their organizational structure, it will stay confidential. But the reality is it's going to affect your deployment status, your promotional status, and your career opportunities if someone with ulterior motives gets that information. So there must be trust in the confidentiality. So this is where I always say, go to your GP and get all of this on record so it's held in medical confidence. So I always say that first port of call, go see your GP. Get this all out, get it all on paper, because bullying is a huge issue in frontline staff. Do not get me started on that unless you want me to come and fix it. But there is so much bullying that goes on in frontline staff, and we deal with that as well, because it's a causative factor to why people are suffering and that, right? So it must be trust and confidentiality, but there also must be trust in the competency. No one's going to put their hand out and ask for help if they think the person helping can't bloody help them, all right? And then the last one is they must have trust in the confidence that they can get through the process. Confidential, competent, and confident that it's all going to work. If you don't have that within your own organization, step outside. The only thing that will stop you is money and cost to access it, which is why we built the solutions community. You can get all of that stuff.
Yeah.
And let's face it, we're, as frontline staff, whether you wear a green uniform, a black uniform, a blue uniform rather, we're not supermen, we're not super women, we're not super people. We're just human beings with a normal nervous system. And as society gets busier and busier and more road traffic accidents, more murders, more stabbings, more violence, more, the shit that we have to see and the emotional things that we have to deal with, it piles up. It piles up. We're not super people, and we're not unemotional people. So of course this stuff's gonna experience us. So let's deal with it in a healthy way. And the word humor.
Let's not forget the skills that you have to get in that uniform. You have all the skills, you have all the abilities that you need to get through whatever you're going through right now. If you had the ability to get into that uniform, you have all the skills and the ability and the mental skills you need to get yourself out of it if you just get someone that can give you some different tools.
Quick question here, maybe for you, Graeme. The question is, what do you do if somebody's triggered, gets triggered by a memory or flashback? How do you actually get them out of it and back into the present?
It's a tool called grounding in therapist talk, okay, and that's just sort of saying, okay, there's also breathing techniques and etc. But I generally use grounding, and if we're talking acute, hey, look around you, take some breaths. Where are you? It's just a memory, it's just a smell, it's a flashback. You're experiencing memory from past. The dynamics of that is the amygdala and the hypothalamus lodge traumatic memory in a different way. So when it comes back to you, it's very prevalent, it's real, and you release those stress hormones, which give you a anxiety feedback loop, because all of a sudden you're going, why am I sweating? Why is my heart beating? Why am I ready to fight? Why am I ready to run? And a feedback loop, because that makes you worse. So you've got to calm yourself down. You've got to ground yourself, rationalize where I am at this moment. I'm safe, actually. I'm in Australia. I'm not in Iraq. I'm not in Bosnia. Yeah, that alarm that's going off now, that's not the emergency, get in the helicopter, let's go, right? That's okay. So real-time example there, but at least my bins are empty.
That's it. And then past that, so that's into the present moment. And then flashbacks and nightmares are a message. Once you're out of that immediate threat response, right in the middle, the adrenaline loop, sympathetic and parasympathetic response to adrenaline, once you got the back in the present, then we need to go through that. Flashbacks and nightmares are a message. You can't ignore them. You can't shut them down. They're a message. And when you listen to them, talk to them, understand what the message is, they'll go. Yeah. Because they just want to be heard and acknowledged. That's why we created the character of the ghost. Every time at 3 o'clock in the morning, the ghost woke me up and said, check the kids, they could be dead like this. Remember this picture of this, right?
Yeah.
So I try and suppress it, it gets stronger. I try and do all this other stuff, it doesn't work. So when I go, okay, what are you trying to tell me? We now have kids, and it's really, really important to us. So it's a very, very deep feeling being a parent. And we've dealt with their kids a lot. That was the most that we've dealt with is their kids. I go, cool, let's check the kids. And so then I started looking forward to the ghost turning up. So where's the ghost? Okay, she's going to get me to check the kids. I'll go check the kids. And she didn't turn up anymore because I heard her. She just inside me wanted to know that my kids were safe.
It's a beautiful thing, eh?
It is a beautiful thing because it's just an unresolved message. When you understand what their message is and being able to have that conversation and say, everyone's too scared to have the conversation, but that's a part of you trying to protect yourself. And I've got to pick my daughter. I just want to finish with this from my side. The worse your signs and symptoms, the stronger your will to survive is. And these pieces of yourself that are manifesting are the pieces that love you the most, that are trying to protect you. They're not demons. It's not a disorder. There's nothing wrong with you. It's just different parts of yourself are manifesting a survival mechanism because they're recognizing something that's reminding them of situations where you could come to harm. That's all. And the worse they are, the stronger your survival mechanism. If you suffer from depression, you got a huge heart. If you're anxious, you got a strong mind. These are absolute positives and advantages when they're translated the correct way by people that have been through it. Not grabbing a bloody check sheet, filling out a -21 and a -42 and saying, you're not listening to me, so now you've got resistance to medical support disorder. You know?
I think Lisa just popped up with a grounding tool, and I only saw 5 things. And I think what she's saying is a tool where if you're triggered, name 5 things you can see, smell, touch. So I go straight to my dog. I'd look out the palm trees and the sky, and it's a very good, very immediate, acute tool to use. So thank you, Lisa. You're part of our team there. Thanks for the support.
Well, gentlemen, thank you so much. Unfortunately, we are out of time. I know we could go on for hours. You are both such an incredible inspiration and wealth of knowledge, experience, wisdom, real true wisdom in this area, having lived through what you've lived through. So thank you on behalf of all of the audience. The comments coming through are unbelievable. If we haven't gotten to anyone's question today, what we'll do is speak with Graeme and Dion and type a response for you. And so we apologize, we've just been inundated with so many questions and comments. So gentlemen, thank you so much. Thank you to the audience. Just to the audience, as soon as you disconnect from this, there'll be about a 2-minute, just about 5 or 6 questions survey. We please ask you to complete that survey. Just take the minute or 2 to do that. You can be anonymous. The only purpose for that is for us to help understand how useful this is, how we do it differently next time, whether you want more of this, whether you want us to focus on something different. So please just take a minute to do that. And secondly, if any of you are feeling like you're in need of support immediately, please reach out to the various organizations. We've got some support and resources up online, but some outstanding, amazing organizations that can help you if you feel you need immediate assistance and support. So please don't hesitate to reach out to them. Gentlemen, well, thank you so much. It's been an absolute pleasure as always. You were both very well behaved for our audience. We're going to have to get the jacket off, Dion, and get you firing on all cylinders next time to help the audience really understand what you and Graeme are really capable of. But thank you. Really appreciate it. Lovely to have you on board today. And thank you to the audience. We'll see you in the next session this evening. Okay, bye-bye.
Awesome. Bye-bye.